Hi there. Thanks for joining me here on Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, the founder of Bare Bones Yoga and the creator of the Momentum Magic Method, the way to become a confident teacher, one who effortlessly walks around the room, shares clear cues, easily builds sequences, and speaks from her heart, sharing authentically with her students. On the podcast, you'll hear anatomy lessons, stories from teachers, interviews with others in the field, and a dose of personal growth, because having a strong, healthy mindset is such an important piece of being a confident teacher. In addition to the podcast, follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Bare Bones Yoga for daily videos. And you'll also see a new link on both of my profiles, my Stan Store link, a literal vending machine for you to select how you best want to be supported as a teacher. There, you'll find links to the podcast, free resources, and other ways I can help you be the best teacher you can be. And don't forget, every single week, in addition to recording you a new episode of this show, I also teach yoga classes and free workshops specifically for yoga teachers. The only way to get your invite is to be on my mailing list. You can do that simply by going to my website, barebonesyoga.com, and down at the bottom, entering your email in the box. Here we go with today's show. Hi there. Welcome to Conversations for Yoga Teachers. I'm your host, Karen Fabian, and this is episode 293. We are inching closer to 300. I can't believe it. I'm recording this intro on the 25th, April 25th, 2024. You are going to be hearing this episode on the 29th of April, 2024, on or after. And this is an interview episode. So I just want to take a minute before I introduce our guest, my guest, to just give you a little bit of just update information. Over the past couple of weeks, I have been just all over Instagram. I've really been leveraging that platform to share information with you, free content with you, lessons with you, workshops with you. Like, I am literally doing what would be paid workshops, but I'm just doing them for free on Instagram on every subject, from mindset to cueing to anatomy to sequencing. All you need to do to access these mini workshops is go to my Instagram profile, Bare Bones Yoga, and click the videos and look for the live videos. You'll run across a whole bunch of reels. These are, of course, just the 90-second snippets. But these deeper dives I'm doing on Instagram Live are there. I'm saving them. I used to not save them, but now I'm saving them. So you literally can just carve out half an hour, watch one, carve out an hour, watch two. You'll see the topics listed in the caption, so you can pick and choose what works for you. So that's all I wanted to say. I just want to make sure you don't miss out on my Instagram, Bare Bones Yoga, and the mini workshops that are there under the live tab. Okay, this interview today is with Elizabeth Ralph. Elizabeth is the owner and founder of her business called The Spiritual Investor. And she is a high-level wealth strategist with 20 plus years of industry experience. She's a former financial executive and energy trader. And you're going to hear her talk about how she got started in that world and what caused her to shift. She blends her knowledge and skill around accessible investing education with the nuances of energy and intuition to create confident, aligned investors. She has a special connection with the yoga community, and she regularly teaches finance at yoga institutions large and small, and incorporates yoga into her community as well. She helps people invest more effortlessly and generate passive income so that they can spend their time focusing on things that light them up, like their yoga practice. This is such an amazing episode that touches on investing, finance, money beliefs. At one point, I even talk about the energy behind the desk I have in my office where I pay my bills. There's just a lot that we cover here, and Elizabeth's wealth of knowledge, as well as what motivated her to leave her corporate career and start her own business, is a story that you're not going to want to miss. Now, I am going to include in the show notes how you can get in touch with Elizabeth, how you can follow her on Instagram, how you can participate in her free trainings and workshops. So as you're listening, just know that all you need to do is go to the show notes right from your phone, and you'll be able to find out how you can keep in touch with her and follow what she's up to. So with that, we're going to go to my conversation with Elizabeth Ralph. Okay, I am here with Elizabeth Ralph, and I am so excited to be here. And just to kind of add this in, I should have mentioned this before we started, but I'll just tell you now, this is going to be just audio only. So even though I get to see you, the listeners will not get to see the video because I always just share the audio. But I'm so glad that I get to see you and we get to have this just like a conversation over a virtual cup of tea or a cup of coffee. So thank you so much for being here on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Of course. So for the listeners, Elizabeth and I know each other from sort of not a past life, but a past connection. And I was so glad when her colleague reached out to me and asked if I would like her to be on the show. And I want to just say to you, the listener, this is going to be, I think, a really fun and interesting conversation about, I guess I could say money, although I will say this kind of falls into the category of I love to share personal growth topics. And so I'm really excited to see where this goes. So why don't we start with, I'll just sort of leave the door open for you, Elizabeth, to share a little bit about what you do. And maybe you could even share where you are calling in from and tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah. Well, I worked on a financial trading floor for over a decade. So I definitely spent a lot of my time in, I would say, the traditional financial world, which was great. It was a great career, job, whatever you want to call it. But, I knew that I didn't want to do it for the rest of my life. So I decided, okay, I need to buy my way out of this because I didn't want to just leave and have zero income. And so what I did was I put a wealth plan together in order to retire, do my version of retirement at 39. So I think everybody gets to create their own version of financial freedom. And so I was able to do that in between, though, because I don't want to make it sound like, okay, I just picked this out of thin air and then I did it. And it's just, oh, it's just so easy. I got tripped up about 3 years into it, and I got really depressed because even though I was on point in terms of my, my goals, my financial goals, I was just feel like I was just doing the grind. I was going in. I wasn't as connected to what I did on a daily basis as I wanted to be. My spiritual side was like kind of going, oh my gosh, we don't want to go into this office and do these things. And, so that's when I really got, heavily into a lot of the spiritual teachings. I ended up, there was a guy from India that I worked with, and he kind of took me under his wing. And this was like, a whole like just beautiful process. I also got into horses at the time. I was married to a professional racehorse jockey, so it was very easy for me to get into horses. And we started rescuing horses and going to horse rescues and all of that. And then I figured out, I was like, okay, well, I've always, loved money, the flow of money. Like I feel money, I feel the market. It's always been that way. My mom was a financial advisor. My grandfather was an entrepreneur. I grew up at the dinner table with all this stuff. But still, though, even so, not many people are motivated by just the dollars in the bank account. You want to feel it. You want to be connected to it, And so what I ended up doing was combining my love of horses and wanting to help them with business. And so what I ended up doing is creating a business that donated to horse rescues. And so I did that even when I had the corporate job. And this was a real estate business. And so that kind of took me into that whole world of investing, and it ended up adding to my ability to retire early. And then when I left, I was like, okay, I'm just going to ease up. I'm going to take a break for a little while, do yoga. I'm going to write a book. I'm going to do all this stuff. We bought a horse ranch. I was planting a garden. And then I was like, okay, this is great. This is great. But, what else? And then I ended up going to a kid's birthday party of all things. And someone was like, can you help me with my money? And I'm like, no, I don't do that. And she's like, well, can you, please, like, I'll pay you. I was like, I don't want any, I don't do that. Well, finally, by the end of the party, I had agreed to do it. And so then I was sitting out in front of her house. I remember I did like an in-person session with her. And I said to myself, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it my way. And I know you teach, yoga teachers how to really do it their way, right? What's that connection? And that was really one of the most pivotal points. So it's very important what you teach, because there's a parallel going on here, right? I had to do it my way. But the moment I decided that my being was going to be connected to this new way, it opened up the door, and literally the physical door opened. And I said to her, we're starting this with a meditation. And she was like, great. So she and her wife, and they had a couple of kids, they sent me a letter in the mail like 6 months later with some photos. And they said, we just bought our dream home in Big Bear, and it was because of you. And I thought, okay, universal sign. And then after that, I started the Spiritual Investor. And so it's been 7 years now that I've been doing this. And it has been just such an amazing journey. We have just continued to grow. But I will say that wealth and revenue in business, even it doesn't have to be a linear, like we have to check our expectations. It has continued to expand. And so now we have between full-time and part-time, I have nine people on the team, and it's just absolutely incredible. I'm so fortunate that I get to connect with people. Even just the calls I've done, even just this morning, have just been mind-blowing. And I don't know, I'm just being able to help people bridge the gap between quantum money and 3D money is just my absolute joy.
Wow, that's incredible. And I love the visual you shared. And it's kind of ironic because I shared on a podcast the other day when I was interviewed this visual of opening a garden gate and walking through the gate. And I had that memory when you described sitting in front of that person's house and like the literal door opening. So I kind of got like chills. And I would love to have you share a little more, especially because you made that parallel between what you do and what I do, and both of them sharing this idea of someone stepping into their true power and being empowered. And so I'd love to know, when you were sitting in your car, do you have a memory of, like, how did you know when she opened the door, the concept of you approaching financial planning from your way would be to start with a meditation? Or like, how did you have the detail of what? Because I know for a lot of yoga teachers that I speak with, they know there's a gap between how they're teaching now and how they want to teach, and they want to feel more empowered, and sometimes they're not sure how to get there. So do you have just anything you can share about what directed you, what guided you, what like spiritual download came to your brain that said, hey, I worked as a financial planner in a very structured way for somebody else. Now I'm doing it on my own, and I want to start with a meditation, and then anything else that you did that followed.
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I do remember actually. So I was parked out in front of the house. I was sitting in my truck because I have horses, so I drive a truck. And I'm sitting out there, and my first thought actually was, it was kind of funny. Like I was like laughing at myself a little bit. I was like, what the heck am I going to teach these people? And it was just like, as a little bit of a joke. And I think that was like an opening. And so we operate with the two selves, right? We have the smaller self, and we have the big version, if you want to say, the higher self and the ego. And so that was really just the ego kind of like knocking on the door a little bit. And then I kind of like, the next thing I moved into was that, okay, if I'm going to do this, I have to do it my way. And as soon as I moved into that, it was like all the space in me opened up. And I didn't actually decide in that moment what that even looked like, because then what that's doing, had I decided it, I would have been going back into the 3D of what does that look like, the how, right? what I did was I got out of the car, and this is exactly, by the way, the same feeling that I get when I walk on stage, because I'm doing a lot of speaking now. I was in Los Angeles speaking 3 weeks ago, and it is, I remember like standing outside of the door, and then they're introducing on stage, and it's empty. When I walk onto the stage, like I'm literally like, it's step, step. There's nothing there, because I know that there has to be nothing there in order for the new answer to have space to come in. So it's the same feeling. So I was standing at that door. I remember it's dark gray, this door. And as soon as she opened it, the answer came in. But that's the key, is that's why they say that everything is nothingness. It has to come from that.
Yeah.
And I would say I'm going to venture to say with the yoga teachers, I'm not a yoga teacher. However, I do quite a bit of yoga. My experience, I'll just give this, if it's reflection back helpful for yoga teachers. My experience is the best yoga classes are the ones where I have this knowingness that they are calling it in the moment. And that to me feels more connected than like when I know it's kind of a sequence after sequence after sequence. It changes my entire experience of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that description of before you went on stage. I actually, in something I did when I did an Instagram live the other day for teachers, I spoke about so many people say speaking on stage is one of their greatest fears. And yet yoga teachers, they're not speaking on stage, but they're essentially walking into a room oftentimes with people they don't know to do public speaking. So I love that whole idea of kind of being in that. It's almost like when a golfer has like that no swing thought moment before they hit the ball. It's like you have to be in that absence of thought. You can't be thinking head down, arm straight. You have to just be in that moment of nothingness to make that pure connection. So yeah, this is all just, it just is bringing up a lot of thoughts. I'm curious from that moment, and as you, I mean, you certainly kind of spoke about how things look now. What are the sorts of things you help people with? Like, what does it look like? What kinds of folks do you work with? What kinds of things are you helping them with? Why are they seeking you out?
Mm-hmm. Well, I would say the number one thing that people are looking for when they come to me is they're looking for, like, they know that they're living in, like, we're just in a different time. We're living in the new paradigm, yet we're kind of operating with the old, which is the work more hours, trade time for money, all of that. Like, people are exhausted from that. And so what they're really wanting to know is, how do I go out there and share the value that I already know I have within me? How do I actually do that and receive an enormous amount of abundance for it, but in an effortless way, in a way that is literally a function of them sharing their gifts? And then once they are calling that in, then how do they also, in addition to that, take a percentage of that and then invest it so that it is expanding on their behalf, so they don't have to go out and ever and keep earning more, and eventually they can have the option to kind of do what I did, which is cover your cost of living with investing, so that, why not still work? We love to work if we're doing what we want to do, but the freedom to be able to not have to rely on, or maybe have the mortgage paid, or maybe have the kids schooling paid, or all of that. Because the reality is, the cost of living right now is high enough in relation to income. And then you got childcare, and then you've got inflation, you've got groceries, and you've got all this, right? The reality is that we actually can't get ahead. We can't actually save for retirement. We can't save enough money for retirement. You have to invest for retirement. You have to use investing and almost see it now as a second income. That doesn't mean you need to be a financial wizard. So I teach people an integrative, easy way to do two things: call in more money in an effortless way, and then use a percentage of that for investing. And the power that they feel when they get that, it's really a system. When they get that in place, it's like they know that they are then literally a new human, because all of a sudden, all of the flood of, hey, I'm not good with money, I don't know how to do this, or I'm in debt and I can't start investing, all that shit goes away,
Mhm.
because then
Mhm.
they're actually seeing it and they're actually feeling it. And so that's the space I love to play in. Like even at the speaking event, it was a 3-day event. And I told them in the beginning, I said, you will all leave here as an investor. I had tears in my eyes. The last day I was up on stage looking out at all these beautiful people. Every single person there left as an investor. And it was actually at a yoga studio, and they were going from yoga mat to yoga mat, sharing and showing their investing accounts and what did they buy and da da da, because we had taken away all this, oh, you have to be so secretive, you have to not talk about money, you have to do all of that. It was incredible. It was
Mm.
incredible.
That's amazing. I remember, and I've talked about this on the show in some solo episodes many years ago. My dad, who's really good with financial planning, pulled me out of a relationship with a financial planner. And he said, you're going to learn how to invest your own money, and I'm going to teach you. And so ever since then, this has been 10 plus years, he and I just manage my portfolio. And in the beginning, I moaned and groaned about it, but I'm so glad that I learned the skills to do that. Having said that, I know that people listening, as soon as they hear the word investing, like the belief system comes up, like even beyond just budgeting, like investing is like another level of like, almost like you said, like secret knowledge, like only people that
Mm.
work on Wall Street know this. I'm not good with numbers. I'm not good with math. I don't make enough money to invest. Like all of the things, like you just have to go on TikTok and you see like young people, like bringing up all these beliefs that just continues like stream on a rock to just wear this pattern of belief system that's in the negative space. So how do you, I mean, obviously somebody that reaches out to you is ripe for change. They're showing there's a coachable person there. Just in general though, for the listener, if they're hearing where we're going with this conversation and they're hearing the word investing and they're triggered and they're like, oh my God, I'm not good. What can you say to that person? Like, how can we speak to that feeling?
Well, I mean, and I think this is specifically for the people that you're speaking to, is that you're further along than you think, because money is a spiritual journey. Money is energy. And so once you actually are open to combine the two, then what happens is you will feel kind of a tailwind behind you. And so investing is not going to be this, it's this world that's been hidden by a veil, it's run by old white-haired men, all of that. Like that's not, even though it's the same word, your experience of investing is going to be different, because suddenly you're going to realize you don't need a lot of money to start investing. You don't need to learn a lot of like brand new, like terminology. You don't need to spend hours a week researching stocks, all of that. Investing is really tapping into your greatest intuition and saying yes to the universe. I'm ready to expand money.
Mm-hmm.
That's my definition of investing. So it's more about allowing the definition to flow through you in a new way that prevents it from being a block than
Mm-hmm.
it is like relearning something.
Got it. So you said something a couple of seconds ago that I want to definitely have you expand upon, because someone listening that hears money is energy might wonder, what the heck does that mean? Because if we think about it in the 3D of the $10 in my pocket, or the $300 in my bank account that I use to pay my cell phone bill, that's a very concrete way of looking at it. So can you share a little more about, because obviously the people listening are yoga teachers, they can relate to the energy of a class, the energy in a room, their own personal energy as they're teaching. So that topic is resonant with them. I just don't know that everybody's thought about it in the context of money.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, let's say in context of a yoga teacher, so there's an agreement I would assume at some point where they're going to teach at a yoga studio and then they're going to get paid for that, or maybe they own a yoga studio, some type of, there's going to be a person to person agreement, and then there's going to be a money exchange. You can't deny that money is energy, because how do you feel in that conversation? How you can, when you're speaking to someone about money, you could be even on a sales call with them about like a product or something, and they could be so in flow, and they're just like, oh my God, they're talking about their product, and then they're asking you questions and they're wanting to get to know you. And then what happens? They go to the money part. Energy shifts.
Mm-hmm.
Energy changes. And so depending on that energetic change, you yourself are going to have a pullback, a reaction. Your energy is going to change, and that is going to change the quantity of the amount of money that is being exchanged. So we're feeling it and seeing it all day. It's just it's not a new concept. It's an undefined concept, really. I don't think that people have really, they're living the energy of money all day without even knowing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it reminds me of an example, and she might actually be listening. She's probably going to recognize this. And I absolutely adore this person who's enrolled in my program, and hopefully this is okay to share. Obviously, I'm agnostically sharing. It was a really poignant moment when she shared with me that she teaches class at a studio in a fairly well-to-do area in the country. And she had this thought when she was, in addition, covering for another yoga teacher as she was going to the studio. I don't know that the sequence that I have prepared is meeting the value of what these students are paying for this class in this studio. And in this conversation we were having, she was talking about the per class price of yoga at this particular studio. And it definitely was a little bit higher than what the market normally has. And it was just interesting to me. And I think this touches a little bit about the energy of money. Because if I'm going in as a yoga teacher and I'm feeling like, well, these folks are paying $45 per head versus maybe $25, does that mean I need to show up with a better sequence? How would I even know what that is? I know it's a little bit off track. I'm just curious. It just, to me, it sort of reminds me of this energy conversation we're having.
Yeah, and it's a great example. And it's really a helpful, tangible example to bring up, because I'm sure it is. And, so many money beliefs are going through people's minds that it's very normalized. Like you go through the grocery store and it's like, you don't buy this other brand because it's $1 more, but you really decided that like 3 years ago, and it's still just in your mind. But why? Why even, like, does it really matter? And the whole, like, it gets very difficult actually, because like I said, we're living in the new world paradigm of money, yet there is still an hourly transaction going on with money. Like, so it's like you trade your time, your value, and you get paid, I would say, especially in what the people you're talking to. And so I think that, I would like to say that get everyone who's listening, give yourself a bit of grace, because your world is built around the old model, yet your mind and your spirituality and the art that you're bringing through, your gifts, are actually based on the new model. And so it's actually more, I don't want to say difficult, because I don't know if it is or not, but it's a little bit more challenging to have both worlds going on, right? So I would say give yourself some grace in that. And also, one of the biggest money blocks that people have is their own judgment about a certain amount of money and then a certain value that they're providing. That's a big money block, and it does come from judgment. Another thing that keeps people from really calling in more money is that they have decided that money is only going to come to them a certain way. And so I can imagine that a lot of people listening to this have one source of income, or maybe I'm saying them, not an outside, like a partner thing, but wealthy people have 8 to 10 sources of income.
Right.
Right. And that's more of their normal. So I think that it's broadening and opening. I mean, you're in contact with people all day long. You have opportunities to, are you on the frequency? Because this is what it comes down to. Are you on the frequency where you can capitalize on those opportunities, where you can step into those opportunities? It all comes down to that, because we are all of us, myself included, we are all creating our world around us at the level of consciousness that we're living at. So the amount of money that's coming to you is matching the value that you're giving and what you're allowing in.
Mm-hmm.
The key is you have to move to a new frequency, but you can't stop there. You actually have to bring it down into the 3D world as well, because you can't just sit on the couch and think great thoughts about money. We all know that, right? You have to bring it down, but it's that new version of you on that frequency that has to bring it down into the 3D world, because the version you are now would never do those things. So what I teach people to do is live in the gap. So I'm teaching people how to pull from the quantum and how to bring it down in the 3D world in a new way that is effortless. It's like the meeting of the new money self.
Okay. I had another memory of a conversation I had with a teacher, and this is actually something that comes up a lot. And I just would love to just toss that out there and see if there's something that comes up for you. The other scenario, and I'm bringing this up because, again, the listener may relate to this. I consistently hear from yoga teachers that I speak to that if they are doing private sessions, they have a lot of angst over charging for them a certain amount, over a certain amount. The typical yoga teacher probably charges $60 or $70 per private. If you just think about if you go to get a massage, or you even go to the salon and get your hair cut and colored, that's at least $150 price point. And when you put yoga teachers and acupuncturists and massage therapists, sort of in a similar vein, $60 is very much beneath that. But teachers will say to me, oh, I just started teaching. I'm not good enough to charge $125, $150. So I'm curious, when you hear that, especially if it's resonating with the listener as something that they have considered or thought of, or does managing that thought process and sort of moving past it lie in this area of money neutrality, and or this area that you're talking about, which is this sort of getting on the frequency of I'm worth it, I'm valued, I'm giving myself compassion, and I also know I'm worth X number of dollars for my privates? Like, I'm wondering, how do we move somebody from that sort of mindset to something where they are valuing the value they provide to somebody and the fee matches that?
Yeah. I look at this kind of completely different way. And so I'll kind of, one of the things is, like, you hear this a lot where people are like, charge what you're worth. I don't believe in that at all. I think that actually messes people up, because if you're charging what you think that you're worth, you're charging it from the current frequency that you're on now. And so, but you're not operating from that. You're operating from infinite potential. And so with that said, there is no comparison in the quantum world. If you're truly operating from infinite potential, then comparing the amount that you're charging that somebody else is charging, it actually makes no sense. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to play in the quantum field, and you're pulling it down in the 3D, but you're mimicking what other people are doing, rather than pulling it down from the quantum world based on you and your resonance. So what I think, it makes a lot more sense, is that what feels right to you to charge. Because, like, I'll use myself for an example. I have not changed the price of the Spiritual Investor Program in years. I don't even think about it. It's $222 a month, because I think that the amount of value that you're getting is enormous. And then you pay that for 12 months, and then you're in it for life. Now, we have people that email us and say, can I renew my payments or whatever? And we're like, no, we don't want any more money from you. You're done, right? And they're like, oh my God, Now I have a mastermind that is constantly, it doesn't, you can't even get spots in it. It's constantly full. It's a high ticket, right? But I feel good about it. And that's all that freaking matters. That's all that matters. And my business is, I feel good about it. My business is expanding. I never, ever, ever associate my value. I would never dishonor the information that is flowing through me, because it's not my information. It's just flowing through me. I would never dishonor that with any type of comparison of what I do to anybody else, because then I would be filtering my system based on what at best a guess. I'm not, I would never do that. I also don't believe that there is a direct connection between the value that I'm giving out, say just in this moment. This is full flow value. There's nothing that exists in this world right now around me except for helping anybody that is listening to this. I hold nothing back. Anything you want to know from me, you can know from me. But I also don't believe in a direct connection that I need you to give me money, because I have a knowingness that the universe is going to return the abundance. And I don't understand or need to understand how it happens. I need to put all of my energetic currency, because that's all we're doing is trading energetic currency. My job is to manage my energy and to show up the most powerful I can in every single moment. After that, my job is done. And it is so powerful, and it is completely effortless.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. And I guess what I'm wondering is, how do you, like, again, we can sort of take this conversation about a yoga teacher who's wanting to start to offer privates, and maybe they're in this place where they're not sure what to charge and that sort of thing. Maybe they are sort of in a little bit more of a disempowered energy, where that's also something that they are bringing into this thought process. So maybe you can say, like, when you work with somebody or just in general in response to this conversation we're having, how does someone on their own elevate their frequency so that they are sort of getting this download from the universe, like, this is what I'm going to charge for my privates, and this matches my highest self and the value that I know I can provide? Like, that's sort of what you're describing, it sounds like. So
Yeah.
how, especially for someone listening who isn't, like, I'm sort of steeped in the conversation we're having, like the nuts and bolts of it. Someone
Mm-hmm.
though that's listening that's not really steeped in quantum versus 3D energetic frequency, like, even as a yoga teacher, I can certainly say, until I went sort of even outside the yoga industry to special people, other people that really talk about these topics, it's a whole other level of understanding energy. So if someone's listening and they have this 3D issue of charging for something, whether it's talking to a studio owner about how much they want to be paid, or privates or whatever, are there some things that you can suggest that helps them tap into this higher frequency, higher self? And like, even that example I shared of that one woman, like, that was literally what I desired for her, is her to step into that more elevated self, so that when she walks into that studio, knowing that these folks are paying X number of dollars per class, she was, I don't want to say qualified, but her energy was meeting that moment.
Mm.
Type.
Well, you've already taught them how to do exactly what you're asking, actually. You don't get on a specific frequency with money to make a money decision. You get on a specific frequency in general, and you make all of your decisions. So that frequency that you're already teaching them,
Yeah.
if they're already on, and that's when the resonance is going to be there for money. Also, the only thing, everything comes back to a letting go. The only thing that they need to do is to let go of the fact that there's any difference.
Right. Difference between.
Money and the flow that they're feeling when they're teaching, and all of the information is just flowing through us. The information that is flowing through me right now is energetic currency, and it doesn't matter. I am exchanging it right now as information, but it also can be exchanged as wealth. It can be exchanged as love. It can be exchanged at, it's actually all the same energy, and we are deciding what we want in exchange. One of the main reasons that people don't make more money is because they block receiving money, because they compartmentalize, right? And even this conversation, like we're showing that, like, it's nothing different. I would say, because I want to make sure I'm answering your question, I would say you already know the feeling of when you're in flow with yoga. Oh my God, you're one of the luckiest people out there, because you're so in tune with that feeling, right? Not a lot of people are. That's when you should be making all of your money decisions. I mean, I buy stocks when I'm on vacation, I'm in a coffee shop. I'm like, I'll spend $10,000. I'll invest $10,000 in 5 minutes on my phone, my E-Trade app, because I'm in a high vibe. I'm not going to buy stocks when I'm like, okay, it's Wednesday at 10 o'clock and I feel like it's just on my to-do list. No, because money's practice.
I love that specific example. And it really, I feel called out, even though you don't know it. This room that I'm recording my podcast in is my financial planning room. This is a different desk than my work desk. And so I have this energetic space, almost like my meditation space. And I've talked about this space on the podcast before. And I actually have on the floor my Post-it note that says Monday, Wednesday, Friday to remind me that those are the 3 days that I sit down, because oftentimes, because I have 2 desks, I get caught up in the part of me that is doing my job, doing my things that I love. And then there's this other part of me that's like, okay, now I'm here at this desk. Now I'm doing, so I had to remind myself, I need to be here Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And you just inspired me to kind of follow the flow of energy that I am experiencing in my day, rather than letting that. And I can honestly tell you, because I have a good relationship with money, I love this desk. Like, I love that I have a special space for my investing, for my day to day. Like, I have this beautiful, like, handwritten book. Like, this is like, it's so ironic that we're having a conversation about money. And there's this whole other level now that you just shared with me, that I am going to just toss the Post-it note. And now I'm going to be led by energetics, because I love, love, love that idea. Usually when I invest, it's because my dad texts me and he says, this is up, this is down, go in your account and blah, blah, blah. And then I have this like panic, because I have 5 things going on. I'm recording an Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And now in that moment, I have to drop all these things, come to this desk, make the trade, blah, blah, blah. And it's not the energy I want to be in. And he'll text me back, did you do it? This is what happens when you have your dad as your financial planner. So I'm going to also talk to dad, and we're going to start operating more from an energetic standpoint, which will be an interesting conversation. Anyway,
I love that.
Yeah. I just that little sidebar, just because I just absolutely love. Matter of fact, I'm going to toss this Post-it note. You're my
Yay! I love it.
I never even thought of it. And truly, from an energetic standpoint, I love my financial planning desk. This is a desk I got at a garage sale. This man told me this whole story about his family was raised around this table. I bought this in Newburyport, Massachusetts 10 years ago for $25. The history of this desk is like a love to me. And that's why anyway, I have a lot of money stuff I could share, but it's not about me. So, okay. So what I would love for you to share a little bit more about is, you've made a couple references along the way to sort of the old paradigm, the new paradigm, and I want to kind of get a little bit more into that so people can understand what you mean, especially because, if we are watching the news, inflation has been in the news for a long time. A lot of economic indicators are just part of the vernacular. A lot of people don't have maybe a good comfort level with what that means. The news is often formatted to sort of escalate and kind of exacerbate our sympathetic nervous system reaction to all of this stuff. And I love everything you're saying, because it really is predicated on this idea of, I control my energy, I control my thoughts. And when I'm in this kind of zone, I'm not triggered by these sorts of things. So having said that, can you share a little bit about, like you were saying, we're straddling these 2 worlds. So tell us a little more about that.
Well, and I want to make sure that I'm relating this to specifically, the yoga teachers and all of that. So, you know, uh, the old world paradigm is much more based on fixation, like things being a certain way. So you get things locked in and then you just repeat and then they just work, right? But, I was actually on a call this morning and it was a 30-day follow-up from the speaking event that I did. And it was mind blowing, all the changes that had happened in people's lives. And even if I think of my life when I was doing, my whole life has changed, right? Like life is happening so fast. There is an acceleration rate that we all feel. And so there is no linear time. Like the amount of time it took to make $1 million 40 years ago was huge. You had to start a business, you had to do all this stuff, da da da. You can make $1 million in a nanosecond, right? And so what people do is they get into this linear time thing with this fixation, like it's going to take me 6 months to build my business. It's going to take me a year to do this. And especially if they're really, really grounded into the 3D. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you just have to be a little bit more aware that fixation and structure can create freedom, but structure can also in some ways, especially if your life is working okay, can make you blind to actually playing in the quantum space. The quantum space is where everything is dynamic. And so like you see this, like, people who are, they might be teaching yoga and then all of a sudden they start a TikTok channel and then they're getting a ton of people from that. Or maybe they're doing something totally different on Instagram, or maybe they are having a conversation and they get 3 new private clients. And then everybody else is like, how are you doing that? How are you doing that? Well, they're on a different frequency and they are able to step into these opportunities. A lot of it is because they're willing to have a dynamic effect. And this is all tying back to something that has really been really coming into kind of what people are talking about lately, which is space. And so if you don't have space in your life, and I do think that part of this whole shift into the new paradigm is recognizing the value of space. Because if you don't have space, you're going to have all the opportunities in the world, and it's like they're knocking on a glass door. You can't let them back in. So I would say the dynamic aspect versus the fixed aspect is one of the things that I think could be a relevant way in. There's 1,000 ways to go about it, but a relevant input for maybe yoga teachers.
Got it. Okay. So this leads me to a kind of related question. You had mentioned when we first started talking how you grew up and that you were surrounded by a mom who was a financial planner or in
Stockbroker.
Yep. You said somebody was an entrepreneur, grandfather.
Yeah.
Yep. So you sort of, said like, I've sort of been around money and, and I thought of, I think of myself and the impression I had growing up about money as a reflection of how my parents thought about money. And that's obviously a common dynamic. We kind of pick up the beliefs we have about money from whoever raised us. And so I'm wondering, for you, how do you feel that impacted who you are, that you were in an environment where money was maybe more seen as a flowing resource as compared to maybe somebody else who had just a different experience, had different languaging when they were growing up from their parents or their caregivers around money, or they had maybe a very challenging 3D experience? Like anything you want to share about that? Like, do you feel you had a different experience that sort of, it was almost kind of predefined that this was kind of the space you were going to be in eventually? Does anything come up when you think about that?
Yeah, I think that it did predefine what I was supposed to do with my life. I definitely do. And you see this often, even in the spiritual space. Like you see a lot of kids that grew up like in drum circles or, with like a shaman around or something like that. Like I think it did set me up energetically to be like more oriented towards this. Um, with that said, though, I don't want someone out there to believe if they grew up with like full scarcity and no money and all of that, like it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have money or not have money. I think everybody has money blocks. Like someone in the spiritual investor group was like, I just want to, I just want to talk to Beyonce because I want to ask her, do you have any money blocks? You must not have money blocks. And I'm like, well, everybody has money blocks. Everybody has their limit. Because like I said, we're all operating at our level of consciousness, right? So what I find is that the level of the amount of money that people are blocking is directly correlated to their level of fear.
Fear around what?
Money, opportunity, being judged.
Mhm.
What are they going to fail?
Mhm.
Fear, all types of all
Yeah.
those childhood things that we're still like skirting around. All of those things is because, like I said, abundance is actually very close to everyone. It's literally like right here. It's that you're not opening the door all the way for it to come in. I find that money is in this society because we're trying to bridge the gap. Problems are always going to shift, just like the world's always shifting. I'm finding that right now, the biggest thing is if you can clean up your ability to receive,
Mm.
then you actually don't have to change that much about what you're doing and about your life, and that actually people are changing their situation, I believe, a lot more than they need to, because they're looking at 3D evidence going, this isn't working. This marketing plan isn't working. This situation isn't working. This person I hired isn't working. This person, they're looking at what's not working, when that's actually only going to move the needle a tiny bit. If you want to move the needle in a giant way, you clean up your ability to receive.
Yeah.
It's just plain and simple.
Yeah, I don't know if you've run across Kat Norton. She's Miss Excel on TikTok.
I've seen her, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So I actually worked with her boyfriend before I started working with Nicole and Dan. He was a business coach. I worked with him one-on-one. He was coaching me in a one-on-one scenario for a handful of months, right on the precipice of her literally exploding. And she is one of those people that, she's done a number of podcasts about the genesis of her business, that she, in about 3 months, went from not zero, but working in a corporate finance job
Mhm.
to making millions of dollars by basically doing TikTok, Excel, how to do Excel, how to learn Excel, how to use Excel for different functions. And she's now, in the multi-millions of dollars with a whole team of people and the whole 9 yards. But I remember last year I heard her on a podcast and she said she's very spiritual and she's very much in the space of what we're talking about, this quantum field. And she said, if I want the business to grow, I don't work on the business, I work on me.
That's what I do too. Exactly. All I do is I said that's my job. I manage my energy. That's all I do. Yep.
And I remember, matter of fact, the guy who was interviewing her, he was just like, oh my God, he just heard her
Mhm.
say that. And and even when I was listening to it, it just went right to my bones. I was like, holy cow. And I knew that that's essentially what you're saying, what you're living, what you're doing. And I think that is such a powerful idea. And yet it seemingly runs counter to, I think, a lot of ways that we operate in the day to day. So I'm curious, when you work with people, how do you, like, what tools, what habits, protocol, how are you sort of, because I can't imagine everybody coming to you is sort of in this spiritual download mental space. I mean, maybe some of them are, I don't know. How do you sort of shift people to this way of being where, because we can have a lot of anxiety about being in this other space where we're not, with the post-it note on the floor, gotta sit, gotta da 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 da, like being in that spiritual space is a retraining of our brain in a way, our nervous system. So how do you work with people to sort of help them gravitate toward this different way of being, which I'm sure in the process probably brings up some fear?
Oh yeah. If it doesn't, you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just use this you for an example, right? So you just suddenly you're like, okay, I thrown away the post-it note, right? Like I wish they could see you because it was so beautiful the way you pulled it up and you looked at it and then you pulled it up again and you crumpled it up, right? It was like you were there and then you were like, oh no, I'm really there now, and you threw it away, right? So those are the monumental shifts. This is effortless because that required no time for you. Now, I love the fact that you're going to open up your relationship with your father. You're going to change the energy that you're bringing into money. You're actually inviting money into your energetic space of truly who you are. I saw that in a flash when you did that, right? Okay. So if I were to have started working with you and said, okay, what are your fears? What are your blocks? What are your then I would be basically focusing on all the things that I think are wrong with you that I need to fix about you. But that would be based on my opinion. And I don't know, who am I to judge that you're doing things wrong, right? So I think the key thing is, and I've designed the program in a way that is nonlinear on purpose. I'm also a nonlinear thinker. But when you come in, there's 5 modules, but you get to start where you want to start, and you get to bring wherever you are into the live calls, when the coaching and all of that. Some people are just dying to get into investing. They're like, boom, just give me the racehorse and put me on it, right? Okay, you can start there. But then there are other people who are like, I just want to learn to talk to my child in a different way because I want to break this generational wealth thing that I know is going on. And that's the most meaningful thing to me. Other people are like, I haven't looked at my money and I hate looking at my money. I hate money management. It makes me feel awful when I sit down. They don't have a magic, wonderful desk like you, right? So they're avoiding it like the plague.
I didn't always have this.
Yeah. So the most important thing is to start with forgiveness. You have done the best job that you can up to this point with money. Absolute forgiveness, and to start with a clean slate. Where are you now? And where do you want to go according to you? I'm a guide and I will get you there, and I'll bring in and fill in the gaps with the financial knowledge or the quantum and the 3D and all. We can do all that. But where you are is actually the most important starting point. And I would never dishonor you by coming in with, and that was one of the major things, by the way, that I knew when I knew I had to teach it my way, because the financial industry is very rules based. It's very, you have to teach this first and this first. And then, that's one of the things I think that I have brought to this from the beginning is, you teach me what you need, and then I'll teach you how to get where you want to go in the most effortless way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like, tell me what your vision is.
Tell me what your vision is rather than your problem, because
right.
I don't actually think you have a problem.
Right.
I actually think that you're looking too hard at the circumstances around you and judging yourself. Like a lot of people are in debt right now and they think, oh, I can't do anything with my money. I need to make more money until I can start building wealth. That is the worst thing you could possibly do. I remember like a year ago, some people who were thinking about joining the program, they're like, should I pay off debt first? And I was like, most financial people will say, pay off your debt, then start investing. Well, you know what? The people who, because I was like, you need to be doing both at the same time. Well, they're glad they did, because the market went up 24% last year, right? Now they feel all this momentum because they have an investing account, which makes you feel proud. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel safe and secure, right? Don't ever think that your world is an or situation. Always look at life as an and situation. Yeah. You can do both. You can invest. You can pay off debt. You can save for a house. You can, even if your cost of living right now is at or above what you're earning, you still should be looking at investing in your money, because if you're not actually looking at it, then you're not allowing that quantum space to come in and bring the dynamicness of new answers. You're just going fixation, cycle, fixation, cycle, fixation, cycle. So breaking the cycle is more important than a step-by-step list.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I sometimes have conversations with yoga teachers about is they have a vision of where they want to go. They know that they're not there. They can tap into that vision. They can see it in their mind of the kind of teacher they want to be. And they might even be ready to invest in themselves, either in my program or even someone else's program, to get to that point. And they're I don't want to say that they're stuck. They're having a block around investing in themselves, which essentially is what it is. So whether they invest in my program or somebody else's, it's a statement that I am betting on myself. I'm investing in myself. I remember one time I was talking to a mom, and she said to me, well, I just don't know that I can spend this money on me when I could spend the money on my kids. You know, a lot of the women I speak to have families and maybe young children. So what's at play there? Like, what's an opportunity there for someone who might be thinking, I have this vision, or even a similar example is, I need to go speak with my husband. I need to check with my husband and see if it's okay for me to, like, we make money decisions together. And even though I have my own job. So in both of these situations, there's sort of this putting myself on the back burner, even though I know this is a good step for me.
Yeah, this is great. I'm so glad that you answered this, because I really feel like I hope that this will help a lot of people. So we all know consciousness is one, right? Where everything is the same. But again, we go back to this compartmentalization. What you just said there is, should I spend this on myself or my child? So I'll give you guys an example that just came up last week. So I have someone in my mastermind right now, and she has a like way up into the 7-figure business, giant spiritual business. She has 5 children under the age of 9. And she is so just energetically consistent. You talk about managing your energy. This woman, I love her to death. She is on it. You can tell when you're speaking to her, she's there. She's connected and she's there. She is living life in an effortless way, not because she's not freaking busy all the time, right? She has 2 of her children are still nursing. And she decided after her first child was born that she wanted to create a different life for her children. And so that was investing in herself in order to create a business, which now has blown her mind. She is now working with me so that she can expand all of the money that has just come to her and is sitting there now, right? If she had thought that, oh, should I invest this in myself or my children? She would never be where she is. And she's changing the world with her business. She has changed the life for her children. She travels all over with her children. Stop compartmentalizing things and let consciousness come in. And consciousness is everything is one. The polarity, when you feel bad, when you feel good, all these emotions, like, stop pushing one away versus the other. The balance within yoga, the specific movements, they're all the same. Your money and your decisions about money are the same as you taking care of your children, if you let them be that way. Now, what I find is creates the most success, you're talking about, should I join a program or move further or somehow change? Really, it's what people are doing is they don't care about the program. They care about the structure and the environment. What's the exposure they're getting that's going to help them get to the next level? When it comes to something like that, that is going to be all about, are you willing to go vertical? So I would say for anyone, instead of making it about the money, make it about stepping into the responsibility that you're going to literally be the best student in the room. Because the best student in the room is the one that gets the most value, and the most value is going to flow through you and is going to go out there. So in other words, if you're going to invest the money, then invest the money and in yourself. Don't make them different, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, when you say be the best student in the room, it's like show up with the energy of the outcome that you want, not with the energy of, okay, I'm sort of begrudgingly investing in myself. And I'm also thinking about this money could have gone to my kids. Like once you take that step forward into your higher being,
Yeah.
it's like the full game is on, like you're fully in that elevated energy and there's not even that thought anymore. Now you're just in full belief that anything is possible and that me taking this step to invest in myself opens up all these other doors that wouldn't be opened if I stayed in that lower frequency. So, yeah, and I can certainly think of a lot of examples in my own life that has happened. And even though in years past it was definitely more of a 3D thought process to take that step, now it gets easier and easier when I do it in the now times. Um, is there anything that you want to share about your month to month program or like working with you, like what that looks like? I know you've referenced the month to month thing or the not the mastermind, the other membership type program. Anything that you want to share with somebody to give them an idea of what it's like to work with you?
Yeah. Well, I think, we've really gone over and into a lot of this, like the space to live in is the gap. What you ideally want to be doing is you want to be pulling from the quantum field and bringing it down into the 3D world in a new way. You really want to be tapping into effortless money, which of course that equates, you not having to spend as much time. And you want to be, learning about investing because you want to expand money. So I would say all of that is under the umbrella of the spiritual investor program. And that's where most people start. That's the one that's $222. It's 12 months. The payment is 12 months. The investment is 12 months. And then after that, you're just in it, for life. You come to all the coaching calls. I have people that have been in there the entire 7 years, and they just do it over and over again. And they say, like I had last week, someone said they're going through all of the modules the third time and they're learning something totally different, totally new, because we change, right? I have a mastermind which people can get on the wait list for. The wait list, I don't know that the wait list is full. The mastermind is always full and sold out by the time it starts. So just jump on the wait list if you think that you want to be in the mastermind. I also run an investing club. You can graduate into that from the program. So that's specifically, it's an internal after you've gone through the program. And that's where we do a deep dive on specific stocks.
Mm-hmm.
You're really building like a high level investing portfolio at that time. Some people just want to be able to call in more money, be able to build wealth, and they want to be able to do it passively and have it as a second income. And they don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but they want it to work really well and build wealth. That's the spiritual investor program. If you want to go in and really pick stocks, there's an option for you to graduate into, but you don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
It really just depends. But all of them, I really like that they give people a different flavor. The mastermind, I meet with you 2 hours a week and just look over your shoulder, and I'm just a guide. Everything that you've put off doing in your entire money life, you'll be doing with me, because I won't let you get out of not doing it. So it's really fun though. Once you get in the program, I do tons of live workshops, and now I'm doing in-person events, and so you get access to a lot of that stuff. So I cannot even believe, I learned from so much from the students, it really fulfills my life as well. So I'm so grateful for the community aspect of it is really.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. For someone listening who might, really be connecting with a lot of what we're talking about, I'm sort of thinking about someone who might be in that one part of themselves that's energized by the conversation. And then another part of themselves might be thinking, it's too late for me. I'm in my 60s, or I'm in a job that my income is XYZ and I have a perception that that's not enough, similar to what you were saying before. What would you say to that person?
I would say this that we're talking about. So if something resonated with you from here, then what it is it's a portal into the quantum, which is where the new dynamic answers are. The spiritual investor program it's a portal into that. So what I would say to that, and I'm so glad you asked this, because that exactly what you said keeps so many people stuck. And if this doesn't resonate with you, this is not the only route either. Like there are other information, if you connect with somebody else, my point is do something about it. Don't let, things keep moving on. There is no linear time when it comes to money. Yes, there is a linear aspect, that the calculation of the compound growth and things like that, of course. There is no linear time with money. And the way that you know that is because of that acceleration factor that we all feel that's going on. Also, if you look back in your past, money has never come to you at the time that you thought or in the amount that you thought. Yet we spend all of our energy now convincing ourselves that we know best. It's going to take X number of years or months to get money. We completely ignore the evidence of what our life has shown us, because a lot of time we're projecting linear time on money, and not realizing that we're subconsciously actually avoiding doing something.
Wait, say that again. We're
projecting linear time on money, meaning we're saying it's going to take me a year to build this business, because subconsciously we don't believe that we can do it in any less time. We're avoiding actually doing that. But if you don't believe that you can call in $1 million today, then you're blocking money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I think of Kat. I mean, she literally was in her parents' house. She happened to be living with her mom and dad. She just made a couple TikToks and it was like in no short order. I mean, it's just, yeah. Yeah. Well, I think for anybody listening, that concept that you just mentioned about if you don't believe you can make $1 million right now today, there is something blocking you. And, I think that really speaks to that deep-seated, not just fear, but that deep-seated belief that we have when we're in our power, when we're in that place in the quantum field of just like everything's possible for me. Okay. Wow. I didn't know I was going to talk about my desk, and I didn't know I was going to get a little spiritual shift in this. So I'm definitely going to send you a DM or something, an email. I'll give you a little quick note on how this is going. Yeah, because I did not expect that, but I'm just so happy that I actually got a little something specific to me out of this. So that was really wonderful. As we wrap up, tell people, and I'll put it in the show notes, tell people anything you'd like about how people can find you.
Yeah, so they can go to elizabethralph.com, and that's where you can find. I have a free SI news report that I send out once a month. So if somebody wants to, I have a podcast, the Spiritual Investor Podcast. I share a lot about these concepts in the spiritual. Even the students listen to the podcast as a way to, what they say is they stay in the energy of it. I have people that take notes from it, that listen to it over and over. It's kind of a study. So if that appeals to you, that's something as well. I occasionally do some live workshops, although I am taking a break to go deep into content creation, and then I'm going to Spain coming up here. So I would say go to elizabethralph.com, see what fits you there. You could join the Spiritual Investor Program there if that's something that you want to do. You can also get on the wait list for the mastermind. I would say grab your flavor of it, and then you can, I would follow on Instagram, because we put a ton of content and videos out that I know I've heard from people that they just, have been helped so much just by even the videos on Instagram. So depends on how deep you want to go with it. Send me a DM on Instagram if you have any questions about it and you're like, hey, I don't know which way, here's kind of where I am. Either I can talk you through it, or I have an amazing team who can also, they will spend the time with you. They'll get on the phone with you or whatever. If it has to always, I'm a big believer that whatever you end up doing, it has to be a hell yes for you. I know that this will work, but it won't work unless it's a hell yes for you. Don't think that you need extra time to do this, though. That's the thing. Don't put this off, because we don't want to be, like you said, the 60-year-old who's, I don't care what age you are, this is going to work for you. What's not going to work is to continue to allow time passing by. That's the only thing I would say not to do.
Mhm. And what's your Instagram?
It's Elizabeth Ralph.
Okay. I'll
Yeah.
just mention, I had a friend of mine who did some financial work for folks, and she, when you mentioned earlier, the person who doesn't look at their bills and that sort of thing, she did some one-on-one work with somebody and they hadn't looked at their mail. Somebody in their family had died and they just kept delaying, and they found $100,000 check in the pile, and it was part of an inheritance. And in her willingness to finally take on looking at that stack and working with my friend, she literally found $100,000, and it had been sitting for months in this stack of paperwork, bills that she was resistant to look at, couldn't get the energy to do it. And thankfully, yeah. And when she told me that, I was just like, wow, if that isn't a sign. So I think about, people who we've been talking about that might have some resistance. I mean, you just never know when you say yes to the universe, to stepping into this more empowered way of being. Just like you said, you look back at your life and you go, oh my God, if I look back with hindsight, yeah, I never knew I was going to get that money. So you just don't know.
No, you just never know. And so we have to step into, hey, it's great that I didn't know back then. I also don't know now. How much freedom does that create for me if I am in the dynamic world of money? That's when you're really bringing your creativity to money, and people weren't taught to be creative with money. And so that's really the change, is that people who are creative are able to bring in a lot of money if they're willing to apply the creativity to money.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So great. Thank you so very much. I've thoroughly enjoyed this and I really appreciate it. I am going to post this live on the 29th of this month, which is a week from Monday. So I will send you the link.
Right.
And it's on a number of different platforms. I'll send those to you so you can share it and know where it is. And I'm just super excited to get it out there in the world.
Thank you. Me too. Thank you so much for this.
Of course. Of course. All right. I look forward to staying in touch.
All right. You too. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed it. And hey, one more thing. While I don't know you personally, I know what a yoga teacher looks like who's ready to work with me. She's ready to take action. She's looking for someone who has the answers she needs. She knows she's worth the investment. She can't wait to get all her prep time back. And she's excited to make a positive change. If that's you, DM me the words podcast offer to my Instagram, and I will give you a special incentive to work with me inside my signature program. My Instagram handle is Bare Bones Yoga. I can't wait to hear from you.